How's it going, guys? This is John with Freedom Machine Works, and today we're going to take a look at how this semi-auto Sterling system works. So first we'll take a look at the differences between an original Sterling Mk4 bolt and one converted to semi-auto. So in an original Sterling bolt, there's a through hole right there with a plunger in the center. That plunger retains the well, it's like a little spring cup that goes in the end of the bolt. In the semi-auto converted bolt, the charging handle has to be cut down a lot shorter because that hole gets plugged with a plug through the end of the bolt. So if we look in the end, you can see there's quite a bit different. So that's pretty simple to do, though. You just use a Dremel tool, cut off wheel, clean it up on a bench grinder or whatever. And so that's the charging handle. Now, the biggest difference in how this system functions is the original Sterling submachine gun fired from an open bolt, which meant that the sear would contact this surface right here, and it would hold the bolt open in the back of the gun like this. So you'd have a magazine with all your rounds in it over here. You'd have the bolt back over here held back by that sear. Now whenever you pulled the trigger, it would drop the bolt, and if you had the selector on full auto, the bolt would just continue to run until you either let go of the trigger or the gun ran out of ammunition. Now, in the United States, the ATF says that you cannot build an open bolt semi-automatic firearm because it's too easily convertible into a machine gun. So therefore, what we have to do is take this bolt, and every time it fires, it'll eject the empty casing, come back down, and close on the breech again. And then you still have to have, a firing pin, some kind of way to strike the primer and light the round off. So the way we do that is by machining. Well, you you plug the end of the bolt, so it's plugged. Let's see if you can see in the end. Sorry guys, my lighting isn't very good. You put a plug. It's almost an inch long, I suppose. Goes in there. It's about 900 thousandths, and it comes down through here. There's a drilled hole that it has to. You actually have to turn a taper on and match it to fill that cavity, so that you can ensure your striker does not hit anything and bind in there. So then it works sort of like a semi-auto striker fired pistol, like a Glock or something else. This would be the striker. So the striker takes the place of what would have been that notch on the front of the bolt, because as you can see here, it has to be machined off. So firing pin or striker goes in like this, and this cap goes on the end. This is the striker spring. This is what controls the tension on the striker. And this system is really nice because it separates you don't have to try to find a happy medium between your recoil spring force and or energy, I guess, that slows your bolt down and slides it back forward, and the striker. So the two are separate. So it goes together like this, and whenever the bolt goes forward, it catches on the let's see if I can I won't be able to do this, but the fire control group, the sear, catches on this little hook, pulls it back, and holds it back. So now whenever you pull the trigger and the sear drops out of the way, it drops this firing pin, slides it forward, and out the end of the bolt. So that's another difference between the original Mark IV bolt. It had a fixed firing pin machined right into the front of the little cartridge, cartridge pocket. So you actually have to machine that away and drill a hole down through there, and it's kind of nerve-wracking because this thing is so hard on the outside. I mean, you can't even hit it with a file. It would ruin your file. So any open surface, even down inside of this hole, you really need carbide to get down through, because it's that tough. It'll burn up drills all day long. So anyways, the plug that goes in the end, you drill a few like plug weld holes in the side, and then just fill them full of, I TIG braze them in. That is sufficient to keep that plug in place. Let's see what else. So this slot here, this angled slot, it allows clearance for this striker to come all the way forward. But there's a spring, there's a little spring pocket that gets machined down in there. You can see that spring. It's a tapered spring. It has to be tapered so that it doesn't bind in the hole. And the large end of that tapered spring is a press fit into that little pocket. So what that does is, in case you have a disconnector failure or something gummed up inside, maybe you haven't cleaned it or something, and the end of the firing pin gets stuck out in that little hole, it helps to ensure that your striker gets pushed back and doesn't act like this fixed firing pin here and just have your gun run away on you. So that spring is absolutely crucial. Let's see what else. Okay, this slot here, this is a slot for a denial bar, and what that does, you can see it in the receiver right there. And what that bar does is it's a requirement from the ATF to ensure that you cannot run machine gun parts in this. You can't convert it into a machine gun. You have to make the conscious effort to be able to get that feature out of there, and trust me, it would not be easy. You can see where it is down inside of this tube, and it's pretty large. It runs all the way up underneath the rear barrel support. That's let's see, right there. But anyways, what it does is you can see on the original Mark IV Sterling bolt, you can't get that bolt around that block. So if this was an original machine gun part, it'll slide into the tube a certain ways, but or a certain distance, but there's no way that you're going to get it to the breech. You can't even chamber around with it. You can't. It's not going to happen. And the same thing for the fire control group. You can see right down here, there's a little tab welded in there, and a corresponding cutout on the back of the fire control group here, so that you can't get this pin in place and lock that in there if it were a full auto fire control group. Now these also started life out as original Mark IV Sterling parts, but you can see here the sear has been machined on either side for clearance so that it can actually slide through this slot, because the sear was originally, I don't know, like ½ an inch wide, and wouldn't have been able to make it. And on top of that, there's a pin. Let's see if I can find it. Right there. That's there's a piece of 01 tool steel plug welded in from either side, and what it does is it now turns this into a 2-position selector. You've got safe, semi-auto, and it won't go to full. So that's how that works. So the way the assembly goes together, you've got the original Sterling large recoil spring here, and we custom make these semi-auto springs by winding them on a lathe here, and let's see if I can get that in there. So they're larger than the full auto springs, and they work amazing. I mean, this thing is so nice to shoot. Here's the spring cup, the striker spring cup. So this is, you can kind of think of this as a guide, a spring guide. So this goes inside here, and it separates, like I mentioned before, the spring force between the striker and the recoil assembly. It's separated right here. So if you were having recoil issues for whatever reason, which you won't with this system, but you can change, you know, these springs individually, and you won't affect how hard your striker lights a primer. So from there, you put the striker in, and make sure that you got to make sure it goes in the center of that spring, or you won't get it in there. So after that's in, all this slides up together, and you'd line it up with the hole for the charging handle, and that's pretty much it. I usually, once I feel the striker stop on the sear inside the receiver, I'll pull the trigger just so it can all fall to the breech end. That makes it easier to get the cap on. That's pretty much it, guys. Sorry, I'm kind of doing this on the fly, and I might have missed some things. Let me know if there's anything you need clarified. And happy Independence Day. Alright, talk to you guys later.